I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My marriage with Lisa was good enough, or at least I thought it was. We'd been together for 6 years, and honestly I thought I knew everything about her, her quirks, her habits, her mood swings when she was stressed at work. But I started noticing small things that didn't sit right. It began about 6 months ago. Lisa started coming home later from work, claiming she had to stay for extra meetings or client dinners. She'd be vague about where she was, and I didn't press her. We'd argue a bit about her not telling me details, but she'd always brush it off with the usual, "You're overthinking it. I'm just busy with work, you know how it is." I'd shrug it off, not wanting to turn into some paranoid spouse. Then she started changing her phone habits. She'd hide her screen when I came near, lock her phone more often, and delete messages. I found myself snooping more than I should, but I told myself I was just being cautious. I'd never thought she'd cheat on me, especially not with someone I trusted, her work mentor, David. They'd always seemed like just colleagues. He was older, a bit charming, but I never paid much attention. One day I decided to drop by her office unannounced. It was a stupid move, I admit, but I was just curious and feeling a little insecure. I wanted to see if she was really working late or just out with friends. I had no reason to suspect anything until I saw her there in David's office. They looked close. She was sitting on his lap, laughing at something he said, and he was running his hand over her thigh. I froze in the hallway, my stomach clenched. My heart was pounding like a drum. I didn't want to make a scene, so I turned around and walked back to the car. But I took pictures of her sitting there, of her phone on the desk, of the intimate moment frozen in my mind. I couldn't believe it. Lisa was supposedly career-focused, but she was screwing her boss right in his office during a company retreat. That's just insane. I never in my wildest dreams thought she'd be so reckless. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything. Her emails, she'd been exchanging flirty messages with David for 6 months, even before I suspected anything. I found emails filled with talk about meetings, inside jokes, plans to meet up after hours. It was all laid out in black and white. She lied about networking and professional growth, but it was all just an excuse. I felt numb, betrayed, furious. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend everything was fine while she was cheating behind my back? I thought I knew her, but it turns out I was just blind. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that visual, her sitting there, so comfortable, so intimate with David. It was like a punch to the gut every time. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get away with hiding this from me. I felt stupid, betrayed, and honestly, a little ashamed for not sensing it earlier. I noticed her phone obsession, her sudden mood swings, her dismissive attitude when I asked about her day, but I didn't want to believe she could do something like this. The worst part was the feeling of helplessness. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I needed to have some facts straight. I got up early the next morning, gathered every piece of evidence I had, screenshots of emails, photos I'd taken, even a few voice recordings I secretly made during that night. I wanted to be ready to confront her with everything, not just my hurt feelings, but solid proof. Part of me felt like I was preparing for a fight I didn't want to have, but I knew I couldn't go in blind. Lisa was still sleeping when I finally decided to wake her up. She looked peaceful, innocent, even as if she had no idea what was coming. I sat beside her on the bed, my hands trembling. I hesitated, then took a deep breath and laid the evidence out on the bedspread. Her eyes widened as she saw the screenshots, the photos, the emails. Her face quickly twisted into that bitchy smirk she always used when she knew she was about to lie her way out. "Oh, come on, Justin," she sneered, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting. That's just work stuff. You're so insecure. Maybe I should be the one feeling insecure, huh? How long have you known?" Her voice was dripping with sarcasm, like I was some jealous fool blowing things out of proportion. I stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Don't deny it, Lisa. I saw the emails. I saw you in that office, sitting on David's lap. How long has this been going on?" She sat up, crossing her arms, her bitchy attitude on full display. "Wow, you're really paranoid, aren't you? You're imagining things. I told you I was working late that night. Maybe I was with a client or a coworker. You're just jealous and insecure because I'm doing better than ever at work. "You're so worried about losing me, you're seeing ghosts." Her tone was dismissive, but I saw the flicker of anger behind her eyes. I wasn't buying it. I told her how I found the emails, pictures, and the fact that she'd been lying all along. Her reaction: she scoffed and said I was crazy, that I was accusing her of something she never did. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one who was jealous, that I was insecure because I didn't trust her. That's when I lost it. All the anger, frustration, heartbreak boiled over. I told her I was done with the lies, the cheating, the pretending. Her response was classic Lisa: "You're overreacting. This is just a stupid misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. Yeah, right. I knew better. I knew that the woman I loved, the woman I married, had been screwing her boss for 6 goddamn months. And she had the nerve to lie to my face, act like I was the crazy one. That's when I realized she didn't care. She wanted to keep her affair hidden, keep her comfortable life intact, and I was just some obstacle in her way. That's when I started thinking about what I had to do next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to process what I just learned. Part of me wanted to scream, to break something, but I knew I had to stay calm. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me, at least not right then. Instead, I told her I needed some time to think, to process, and I walked out of the house before I said something I'd regret. The next few days I stayed mostly quiet. I didn't answer her calls or texts right away. I was trying to figure out what I really wanted. Deep down, I knew I was done with her lies, but I also knew I needed a plan. I didn't want to just walk away without making her feel some of what she'd done. I needed a way to make her understand that betrayal came with consequences. I started digging deeper. I pulled every email, every message, every piece of evidence I could get my hands on. I wanted to know how long this had been going on, what else I'd missed. Turns out she'd been sneaking around with David for at least 6 months, maybe longer. And there were more details I didn't want to believe. She told friends she was working late, but she was actually having sex with her boss, sometimes in his office, sometimes in motels. I don't even want to know the specifics. All I could think about was how much she lied, how she betrayed my trust over and over. One night, I finally decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive guy who got played. I wanted her to understand that cheating on me was a choice she made repeatedly. So I booked a hotel room nearby. I planned to catch her in the act if she tried to lie her way out again, or at least force her to face what she'd done. The night she came home, I was waiting in the room. I had my phone ready to record just in case. When she finally arrived, she looked angry, probably because she knew I wasn't buying her usual bullshit anymore. She tried to slip past me, but I blocked her. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, voice cold but steady. "I know what you've been doing and I want to hear it from you." Her eyes widened and she looked genuinely surprised for a second. Then her bitchy mask slipped back on. "Oh, look at you playing detective. Seriously, you're overreacting. I told you it's just work stuff. You're jealous." "Stop," I cut her off. "Stop lying, I have everything right here." I pulled out my phone, showing her the recordings, the emails, the photos. It hit her hard. She froze, her face draining of color. The bitchy smirk was gone, replaced with a look of fury and panic. "Fine," she spat. "Yes, I cheated. I fucked David, okay? It's because you're worthless in bed and you don't know how to satisfy me anymore. I needed something else, someone who actually cares about me. You're so boring, Justin. You're just a nice guy, but that's not enough anymore." Her words cut deeper than anything else, like a knife twisting in my gut. She didn't even try to deny it. She just justified it as if it was my fault she cheated. That's when I knew I had to make a choice. I could keep going, trying to fix what was broken, or I could finally walk away. I looked at her, this bitchy version of my wife, and I realized I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't cheat, who wouldn't lie, who wouldn't treat me like I was disposable. I told her it was over, packed my things, and left that night. The whole time she kept yelling, calling me insecure, pathetic, trying to manipulate her way out, but I wasn't going to fall for it anymore. I was done with her games. Walking out that night felt like ripping off a bandage that had been painfully holding in the wound for months. I knew I was making the right decision, but that didn't make it any easier. My chest was heavy, my mind racing, and my stomach still churned from the shock of her betrayal. I wasn't just leaving her. I was leaving the life I thought we had built together. All of it just gone. It was the kind of pain that hits you suddenly, like a punch to the chest, and leaves you gasping. In the days that followed, I stayed with a friend. I didn't want to go home. The house felt like a prison, filled with her lies and the ghost of what used to be. I spent hours just staring at nothing, replaying everything in my head, her sneaky texts, that secret office rendezvous, her lies. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, how I missed all the subtle signs, but deep down I knew it wasn't about me. She made her choice, and I had to accept it even if it hurt like hell. I started thinking about how to move on. I knew I couldn't keep living in the past, pretending everything was fine. I had to find a way to rebuild. First step was legal stuff, getting a divorce. I didn't want to drag this out or make it more painful than it already was. The process was ugly. She fought every step of the way, trying to spin it like I was the villain. She called me controlling, insecure, even accused me of cheating myself to make her look bad. That bitch was good at twisting shit around, but I stayed firm. I wanted out. I wanted to free myself from her lies, her manipulations. I also knew I needed to focus on myself. Somewhere in all this chaos, I realized I'd lost myself a little. I was so busy trying to keep her happy, keep the marriage alive, I forgot who I was. I started hitting the gym, talking to friends more, working on my career. I needed to rebuild my confidence, piece myself back together. Honestly, it felt like starting from scratch, but I knew I could stay stuck in that toxic mess. The worst part was the emotional toll. I felt angry, betrayed, but also exhausted. I went through phases: initial rage, deep sadness, numbness, and now a strange sense of relief. The relief came from knowing the truth, from no longer having to pretend she was faithful. But it was a long road. I still had moments when I'd get triggered by something small, like a song or a smell, and suddenly I'd remember her face, her lies, her betrayal. Like a scar that never fully heals. What really hit me was realizing how much I'd trusted her, how I'd believed in us. And now I had to accept that sometimes people you love can turn into strangers overnight. That's a hard pill to swallow. I learned that being with someone doesn't guarantee honesty or loyalty. I learned not to ignore the little signs of trouble, and most importantly, I learned that I deserve someone who respects me enough not to cheat or treat me like I'm disposable. I don't regret the decision to leave. It's painful, sure, but it's also freeing. Finally, I can start healing, even if it feels like it'll take forever. After the divorce was finalized, I thought I'd feel some sort of relief, but honestly, it was a mixed bag. Part of me felt victorious, like I finally escaped that toxic, lying relationship. But another part felt hollow, empty even. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I didn't see the signs sooner. I kept replaying all those moments I ignored her bullshit, all those times I told myself she was just stressed or busy. Now I knew the truth. She had been cheating on me with her boss, David, for months, and I had been blind. Living alone was its own kind of strange. The house was eerily quiet, filled with memories of better times, times when I thought we were happy, when I thought she loved me. But that was all gone now. I made a conscious decision to cut all contact with her. Every message, every call, every attempt she made to reach out, ignored. I didn't need her justifications or her fake apologies. I knew better than to fall for her manipulations again. In the aftermath, I threw myself into work. It was my way of coping, of trying to rebuild some normalcy. I also started talking to new people, trying to reconnect with friends I'd let fall by the wayside. I realized I'd been so focused on keeping the marriage afloat that I'd lost sight of myself. Now I was trying to find who I was outside of that relationship, what I liked, what made me happy, what kind of life I wanted to build. One thing I learned is how much betrayal can shake your self-esteem. I used to think I was a decent, trustworthy guy. But after Lisa's cheating, I felt like I'd been sucker punched, like I wasn't enough. It's a hard truth to swallow, but I knew I had to rebuild that confidence from scratch. I started going to therapy, Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I let myself stay so long, why I ignored the warning signs. The most surprising thing was how some people reacted. A few friends were really supportive, but others, people I thought were close, kind of stayed quiet or even avoided the topic altogether. It made me realize how much betrayal can be a lonely road. Not everyone understands what it's like to go through something like this, and not everyone is prepared to support someone who's been hurt so deeply. Slowly, I started feeling like myself again. I learned to set boundaries, to stand up for myself, and to trust my instincts. I refused to be that guy who let someone walk all over him. The hardest part now is not falling back into old patterns, trusting too quickly, ignoring red flags, letting people get close again when I'm still healing. But I know I'll get there. I don't have a magic fix, but I do have hope. Looking back, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that betrayal doesn't define you. It's what you do afterward that really counts. I could have stayed bitter, resentful, angry forever, trust me, the temptation's there. But I choose to see it as a painful lesson, one that made me stronger, more cautious, more aware. I'm still healing, still figuring things out, but I know I'll come out of this better. And someday, I hope to find someone who truly values honesty and respect, someone who wouldn't even dream of betraying me the way Lisa did. That's the goal now, to rebuild and move forward, knowing I deserve better than that kind of betrayal. Now that I've had some time to reflect, I realize that this whole experience has changed me, probably forever. I used to believe in absolute trust, in the idea that marriage was about loyalty and honesty. But I've learned that sometimes, people you love can turn into strangers overnight. It's a brutal lesson, but one that's made me more cautious, more aware of my worth. I've come to accept that I can't control other people's actions, only how I respond. Lisa's betrayal was a blow I didn't see coming, but it's also a wake-up call. I've learned to value myself more, to listen to my instincts, and to never ignore the red flags again. I've also learned that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. I forgive her for myself, not for her, because holding on to anger doesn't do me any good. But I also refuse to let her define my future. Moving forward, I'm focusing on my own happiness. I'm rebuilding my confidence, reconnecting with friends, and exploring new opportunities. I've realized that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means learning to love yourself first. I want someone who truly respects me, who values honesty, and who understands that trust is the foundation of any relationship. I want to share this story because if anyone out there is going through something similar, I want you to know you're not alone. It hurts, it's painful, and it's hard to see a way out sometimes. But healing is possible. You're stronger than you think. Don't let betrayal make you feel insignificant. Use it as a stepping stone to become better, wiser, and more resilient. In the end, I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned. Lessons about trust, about boundaries, about what I deserve. I can't change what happened, but I can control how I move forward. And I choose to move into the future with my head held high, knowing that I'm better off without her. The pain will fade, but the strength I've gained will stay with me. I've lost a wife, but I've found myself again. That's the real victory.